Contracting.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We are really excited about today's webinar. My name is Shonda Harris. I'm a business opportunity specialist with the Columbus District Office of the Small Business Administration, the SBA. And we are excited to put on this training today for you. This training is a part of government contracting series that we here at SBA partner with the Apex Accelerator. And so we recognize that we have 50 people registered today. I do see a few familiar names, but many names that I have not seen before. So some of you may be new to our series. You may be new to partaking in our webinar. So we want to introduce you to a resource that can be helpful if you are looking to go after government contracts, whether at the federal, state, city, county level. There is a wonderful resource that could assist you in your process. So Apex Accelerator, Ms. Sharon Hopkins, who is the director at the Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. We're going to have Sharon come tell you a little bit about Apex, and then we'll do a couple housekeeping things before we introduce our speaker. Sharon?
Good morning. Thanks, Shonda. So today I'll share just briefly a quick overview of what the Apex Accelerator is all about. In a nutshell, we assist businesses in selling to the government. So if you have a business, you have a service or a product, there's a good chance some government agency at some level might buy that service or product. The Apex Accelerators in the state of Ohio are here to assist you. We start out, we offer educational courses like this so that you can learn about government contracting. We partner with SBA all the time to do that. We also offer one-on-one counseling, and we can help you, conduct research. We train you. We help you look at your market. We help you with developing capability statements, which is sort of a flyer about your company that is written in terms the government understands. And then we help you bid. We have a bid match system that we are moving companies right now, but we will have our bid match system up and going again as in the coming couple of weeks. But that will match a company and what you do against government and what they're buying. That gives you daily bid matches. And then we can help you if you find a solicitation you're interested in, we will walk you through that, show you the important things to look at, how to respond. We cannot write your proposal for you, but we will give you tips and tricks, and we will even look at it prior to you submitting and give you any feedback should you request that. And then our hope is that you win awards. Since COVID hit, our clients have regularly sold over $1 billion in product and services to government agencies. So we are pretty proven, and we are here to help you. So with that, I will turn it back over to Ms. Shonda Harris with the SBA.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. We are always excited to work with Apex, and we've been working with them for years. A couple of housekeeping items before we dive into the webinar. This session is being recorded. We will post the recording on the OU Apex's website. And then also, I do believe they'll upload the slides as well, so you can have access to that. We will also, if you do have questions, we do have 3 presenters. So if you do have questions, we do want you to go ahead and type those in the chat. And so my counterpart, Jill Nagy Reynolds, who's the other BOS, the Columbus District Office, is going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, if you can go ahead and plug those in the chat. Today's webinar, just to give you a little backdrop, is going to be on SBA federal government resources. And so these webinars we put on are to assist you as a small business along your journey in doing government contracting. And so some of you may be doing business with the state, a city, or a county. Today's webinar is going to be focused on those that may be doing federal government contracting. And so we do have SBA resources. Jill and I are housed at a district office out in the field. Outside of that, SBA is a huge agency. We also have departments and divisions up at headquarters at SBA. We have a government contracting division. And so these resources that are going to be introduced today are kind of housed under our government contracting and business development division. And so if you are just getting started and doing federal government contracting, maybe you just registered in SAM, maybe you just started working with Apex. Some of you may be more advanced. We recognize that people are on this webinar. There are different ages and stages of their government contracting journey. So if you've submitted a bid, maybe you've won a contract, and sometimes there may be some questions about some of the clauses in your contract, or maybe you've run into some issues with a contracting officer. So the resources we have today can help you with that. First up, we do have a PCR, Procurement Center Representative. We have Mr. Paksa Dewhurst, who's a PCR down at Wright Pat, who will be kicking us off, and we'll give a little backdrop about what PCRs can do to assist you along your federal government contracting journey. So Pak, if you are ready, we'll go ahead and kick it over to you.
Pop, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pak Dewhurst, Procurement Center Representative of SBA's Office of Government Contracting here in Area 4. For the overview, I'll provide an overview of the SBA Office of Government Contracting's mission and programs. I will explain the responsibilities, the qualifications, and the authority of a PCR. I'll describe the various types of customers in which the PCR supports. I'll highlight or examine, if time permits, the critical areas in which the PCR focuses during the initial acquisitions planning phase. And I'll also discuss the PCR's reviews, recommendations, and key FAR citations. And then finally, I'll explain when and demonstrate how to contact a PCR. SBA mission and programs. As the only go-to resource and voice for small businesses backed by the strength of the federal government, the U.S. Small Business Administration, or SBA, empowers entrepreneurs and small business owners with the resources and support they need to start, grow, or expand their businesses, or even recover from a declared disaster. It delivers services through an extensive network of SBA field offices and partnerships with public and private organizations. Created in 1953, the SBA continues to help small business owners and entrepreneurs pursue the American dream. SBA is the only cabinet-level federal agency fully dedicated to small businesses and provides counseling, capital, and contracting expertise as the nation's only go-to resource and voice for small businesses. The Office of Government Contracting, or GC, works to create an environment for maximum practicable participation by small, disadvantaged, service-disabled veteran-owned and women-owned small businesses in federal government contract awards and large prime subcontract awards. GC advocates on behalf of small businesses in the federal procurement environment and plays a major role in the formulation of federal procurement policies that affect small businesses. As shown here, GC is comprised of 12 regions within 6 areas nationwide and its 5 major territories overseas. The Office of Government Contracting is comprised of 4 components that drive small business goals of the agencies we support through various small business programs. We prefer to do this through small business set-asides. The Procurement Center Representative, that's me. A PCR helps small businesses win federal contracts. PCRs view many federal acquisition and procurement strategies before they're announced. This enables them to influence opportunities that should be set aside for small businesses. PCRs also conduct market research, provide counseling on the contracting process, and more. The Commercial Market Representative, CMR, ensures that small businesses are receiving maximum practicable opportunity to participate as federal subcontractors. The CMR role will be covered more extensively later. The Certificate of Competency Program, COC cases are assigned to the appropriate PCR. The COC process determines the contract holder's responsibility with respect to all elements of responsibility, such as capability, competency, capacity, credit, integrity, perseverance, tenacity, and limitations on subcontracting for the purpose of receiving and performing a specific government contract. The SBA can issue a COC when the firm is able to demonstrate their ability to overcome the contracting officer's objections. The size specialist is involved in size determinations and size protest cases. Size specialist will investigate whether a self-certified firm meets the size standard for SBA programs using a firm's tax returns and/or payroll records, depending on whether the size standard is revenue-based or employee-based, or in other words, centered on manufacturing or services, respectively. The role of the size specialist will be covered more extensively later. A 5th component not shown here is the business opportunity specialist, or BOS. They are crucial towards the success of specific socioeconomic small business programs. The BOS works from an SBA office of field operations. The BOS role will be covered more extensively later. Responsibilities, credentials, and authority. In a nutshell, we advocate for small businesses. We train federal agencies, resource staff, and other partners in small businesses. We mediate a wide range of small business matters. And we work closely with contracting officers, contract specialists, and small business professionals at federal buying offices. Delving a little bit more deeper into what a PCR does, let's look at its functions. More specifically, the PCR assures small businesses are given fair consideration and opportunity in federal procurements. PCRs assist agencies in meeting small business goals through training, counseling, and technical assistance, which may require referrals to various designated SBA subject matter experts, or SMEs, or other resource partners. Communicate with federal agencies on their upcoming procurement needs to support their unique mission requirements. We also receive cure and show cause notices of businesses headquartered in the PCR's area of responsibility. And we also offer those firms assistance if needed. We also process certificate of competency requests, as mentioned earlier, when assigned, to determine the contract holder's responsibility with respect to all elements, including capability, competency, capacity, credit, integrity, perseverance, tenacity, and limitation to subcontracting. We inform federal agencies on small business regulations, updates, and changes in SBA programs. And we participate in various local and regional industry outreach events. We review small business coordination records, such as the DD Form 2579, EPA Form 1937, and VA Form 2268, among others, to ensure that small businesses are afforded opportunities to compete. Other reviews include subcontracting plans for compliance and assessment of maximum small business subcontracting participation on prime contracts prior to contract award. authority, and qualifications. For authority, the PCR's authority is derived from FAR Part 19 in the Code of Federal Regulations, or CFR. Qualifications: PCRs are acquisition professionals in the 1102 occupational job series. All have extensive experience as warranted contracting officers. Many were procurement analysts in various roles, such as contract quality assurance, small business professionals, and other roles. Some have served at various levels of acquisition management and leadership in the U.S. military or other federal agencies. All have federal acquisition certifications in contracting, and all attained a minimum of a 4-year degree in accounting, business, finance, law, contracts, purchasing, economics, industrial management, marketing, quantitative methods, or organization and management. Most PCRs in our area have graduate degrees. All completed on-the-job training. All have a security clearance or favorable background and suitability to protect the operational activities of the specific agencies we as PCRs directly support day to day in our respective areas. For example, since I support the Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and the U.S. Department of the Air Force within my area here in Southern Ohio, I will be aware of certain aspects of their day-to-day mission as I assist them with their procurements and help resolve other contract issues. All are experienced in releasing of information related to contracts and safeguarding source selection sensitive aspects of a particular acquisition. We make every effort to preserve acquisition's integrity, such as names of our other competitors, pricing, strategies, etc., or until such information is publicly released through sanctioned channels such as sam.gov, contract opportunities, and other official means. The PCR's reach, all 50 states have PCR representation, but a PCR's reach varies. Numerous states have one assigned PCR. This is typical for states located around, say, the Rocky Mountain region and the Great Plains regions. Several individual states have more than one PCR. Those states have more federal agencies than other places. Several PCRs support numerous federal agencies spanning 2 or more states. And there are a few PCRs who are predominantly dedicated to a single procurement center due to its immense size, complexity, and typically with a high volume of procurement actions. Our customers. PCRs interact with various types of customers to achieve best outcomes when performing compliance and advocacy. That interaction is a two-way communication between the PCR and the customer. It's a conversation. The federal buyer, contract specialists normally work underneath the guidance of a contracting officer. Contract specialists are trained in acquisition and related business skills such as market research, source selection, cost and price analysis, negotiation, and contract administration. Many contract specialists aspire to become contracting officers, and this is a typical career progression. Contracting officer, or CO, is a person who can bind the federal government of the United States to a contract. The CO holds a warrant that allows them to negotiate on behalf of the United States government. As the government's agent, only COs may execute, modify, or terminate a contract. The small business professionals. Small business professionals are commonly known as small business specialists or small business liaisons, depending on the agency. Here, I'll refer to them as SBPs. SBPs are business advocates and interface on behalf of small businesses with government contracting officers, contract specialists, and their agency end users and key decision makers. SBPs support small businesses in preparing to successfully integrate themselves into the contracting process and obtain awards with their respective federal agencies. SBPs guide marketing efforts such as industry days to assist in locating additional small businesses, as well as help the contracting officer bridge the gap and find small businesses that can successfully perform the task. Local and regional business matchmaker events, for example, afford businesses some networking opportunities with state and federal procurement representatives, as well as with industry. Many SBPs are a part of each agency's small business office, or OSTBU. They are present at the agency's headquarters location and often at the regional level or any location with a significant contracting activity. Small business. This includes small businesses, small disadvantaged businesses, 8A business development program small business participants, small businesses that operate and employ people in historically underutilized business zones or hub zone small businesses, women-owned small businesses, economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, and those VOSBs who are service disabled. Other types of businesses not shown here supported include joint ventures and firms mutually engaged in mentor-protege relationships. The SBA staff include PCRs, CMRs, SI specialists, and the business opportunity specialists I mentioned previously. Resource partner, we have one of them here. Apex Accelerators, formerly known as Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, help small businesses interested in government contracting. Apex Accelerators can help firms determine if they are ready for government contracting, are registered in the proper databases, and help businesses find opportunities to bid on contracts and more. Small Business Development Centers, or SBDCs, offer free one-on-one counseling and low-cost training services. Business owners can go to SBDCs for help with procurement and contracting, market research, 8A program support, and more. SCORE is short for Service Corps of Retired Executives. SCORE is a nonprofit association of thousands of volunteer business counselors around the country who educate small business owners. The Veteran Business Outreach Center, or VBOC, is designed to provide entrepreneurial development services such as business training, workshops, counseling, mentorship opportunities, and resource partner referrals to service members, veterans, National Guard, and Reserve members, military spouses and family members interested in starting or growing a small business. VBOC here on the slide is colored in gold. The reason for that is because they're much closer to the SBA organization than the other four resource partners. Just wanted to illustrate that for you. The Women's Business Centers, or WBCs, are part of a national network of entrepreneurship centers throughout the United States and its territories, which are designed to assist women in starting and growing small businesses. PCR involvement with customers. For federal buyers, we conduct surveillance reviews of the agency's contracting actions. We issue joint business operating plans with the agency's contracting office, and we conduct annual small business goals analysis for each of the agencies supported. We advise the agency's head of the contracting activity, or HCA, and we continuously collaborate with the small business professional at the agency's contracting office. We issue formal as well as informal Form 70s if necessary, and we can provide added market research to support their procurements. For small businesses, we engage in public speaking events and panels. We can invite and endorse subject matter experts. We provide counseling to small business owners. We connect small businesses to the small business professional at the agency's contracting office. And we recommend policy changes. For resource partners, we participate in outreach industry events. We make referrals on behalf of the prospective small businesses. We provide technical training on federal procurement topics, and we support small business innovation research, or SBIR, and small business technology transfer, or STTR programs. We conduct direct outreach engagement with resource partners. PCR and SBP items of interest during initial acquisitions planning phase. I'll only briefly touch on each of these 7 areas. Competition requirements, FAR Part 6. Market research is integral in that. Acquisition plans, which includes contents of written acquisitions, additional requirements for major systems, bundling, consolidation. For restrictive requirements, qualification requirements, delivery or performance schedules, use of sealed bidding. For market research, in my opinion, the most important piece of this. Market research is covered in FAR Part 10. Required sources of supply and contract types, which include priorities for use of mandatory government sources. Simplified acquisition methods, indefinite delivery contracts, fixed price contracts, and special contracting methods. Small business programs is covered in FAR Part 19. In addition to small business programs, this also covers contract set-asides, subcontracting, and then finally special categories of contracting. Additional requirements for major systems, that could be your weapon systems. Many of my customers at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base are involved with that. Reviews, recommendations, and key FAR citations. What are SBA's and the agency's contracting office's responsibilities when providing contracting assistance to small businesses? For reviews, to ensure the agency is appropriately setting aside the acquisition to small businesses. If unable to be set aside, has the agency considered a sole source to a small business, if at all possible? Seek newly qualified and eligible small business sources. Break out components, items, and requirements for competitive acquisitions. And we're always looking for ways to improve competition. For recommendations, recommending firms for inclusion to be solicited on a specific acquisition. PCR recommends to the procuring activity alternative procurement solutions that would increase small business subcontracting participation on prime contracts, reserving one or more awards for small businesses when issuing multiple award contracts. And finally, appeal to the agency's chief of the contracting office when no small businesses are being solicited. The key citations are derived from FAR Part 19, small business programs. First, the purpose of small business set-asides and procurements reserved for small businesses, unilateral versus joint small business set-aside determinations. And of course, the PCR can review any acquisition in excess of the micro-purchase threshold. Second, rejecting small business administration recommendations. The contracting officer rejects a recommendation of the SBA, written notice shall be provided to the appropriate SBA representative within 5 working days of the contracting officer's receipt of the recommendation. Third, withdrawing or modifying small business set-asides. One example of modifying a set-aside, an agency buyer realizes that there are sufficient women-owned companies among other small businesses. As a PCR, depending on the situation, I may advise the buyer to consider an exclusive set-aside to women-owned businesses first before setting aside the procurement for all other small businesses to compete. And of course, this is situational dependent. and awards involving subcontracting plans for small businesses participating in federal contracts as subcontractors can offer an important pathway to government contracting work. Subcontracting also helps the federal government maintain a diversity of suppliers. The topic of subcontracting plans and federal contracts these days is drawing increased attention in the last several years. When and how to contact a PCR. Federal procurement training and education. Small business outreach events include industry government engagements such as business matchmakers at the local and state levels, national conferences and workshops, educational webinars. For small business utilization and counseling services, subcontracting program assistance can help businesses with subcontracting questions after a contract is awarded. SBA can help with tools to match prime contractors and subcontractors, help them market their services to prime contractors and more. SBA utilization and counseling also includes Boots to Business, Thrive, Emerging Leaders, Reimagined, and Empower to Grow. Of course, myself and other SBA staff will certainly refer businesses to Apex, SBDC, SCORE, and other partners as appropriate. Market research tools, as shown here. Audits, agency small business goals, and joint business operating plans. Acquisition disputes, they include size appeals, NAICS appeals, 8A eligibility appeals, woman-owned small business and economically disadvantaged women-owned small business appeals, veteran-owned small business, as well as service-disabled veteran-owned small business protest and appeals, pre-award and post-award protests. Certificate of competency as size referrals, as shown here. Internal acquisition strategies as well. How to contact a PCR. It's quite simple. Select federal contracting. And then select Procurement Center Representative Directory. In summary, I provided an overview of SBA's Office of Government Contracting, mission and programs. I explained the responsibilities, credentials, and the authority of a PCR. I described at length the PCR's customers, and I examined PCR's items of interest during the initial acquisition planning phase with our respective agencies we support. We discussed PCR's reviews and recommendations, and I highlighted PCR's key FAR citations and explained when and demonstrated how to contact a PCR. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Pac. Are there any questions? I know there were a few questions that people posted in the chat, but are there any additional questions before we move on to our next presenter? There's a lot of great information. Okay, I don't think we have any others.
Excuse me, Ms. Harris. I have a quick question, if that's all right. So it's I was able, and thank you, Pac, for the overview. So it's just as simple as, you know, looking at the directory. It looks like for Ohio, it's Ms. Maria Galloway. So just being able to reach out via email and maybe send a capability statement, that would be, you know, and let her know that maybe I needed some help in getting out there. that the best way to go about it?
It depends. I would, you know, typically you would, you know, if you're not sure about your procurement readiness, this is a process really. If you're not sure about your procurement readiness, for example, then obviously reach out to the Apex and SCORE and other resource partners that I mentioned. If you know which agency, which federal agency you want to do business with, say, for example, you want to do business with the Department of Veterans Affairs, then those small business professionals at that agency would be able to assist if you're interested in doing business specifically with that agency. If you know, obviously, I would certainly welcome capability statements, but a lot of that material is going to be forwarded to our small business professionals within our area. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so another way of looking at this, I've got 4 agencies here in Southern Ohio. So when you went to go to the PCR directory, you saw Miss Maria Galloway. She's interimly responsible for all the federal agencies that are located in Columbus and north of Columbus. And then everything south of Columbus would be my responsibility. If you scroll a little further down, you'll see me there. I'm responsible for the Department of Energy in Cincy, the US EPA, also in Cincinnati, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base here in the Dayton area, as well as the Department of Veterans Affairs. So if you wanted to do business with those 4 particular agencies under my purview, then I would just refer you to those particular agencies and their small business professionals. Those small business professionals are embedded with their contracting officers and contract specialists within those agencies. I hope that paints a clearer picture.
Very much so. So, for example, I'm in the Columbus area, so seems like Ms. Galloway would be the person that I could reach out to, you know, with those 4 areas under her purview, primarily the ones in Columbus. And yes, and, you know, working with those small business individuals to kind of make sure that I'm ready. I really appreciate the overview. Thank you.
Sure, not a problem.
All right. Thank you so much. Again, Pac, some great questions, and I think Jill's kind of answering those. So typically, yeah, with your certifications, you can reach out to Apex Accelerators. Jill and I can also assist if you have some questions with those. Since I'm doing this, will our PCR be able to direct us to specific program specialists who project leads, whose project leads may be up at Lakehurst, for example, which falls outside of our local PCR?
Right. What I would do if you say Lakehurst, as I understand it, that would be in central New Jersey. So what I would do is that if you reach out to me, you know, you didn't contact the wrong person per se, but I can certainly point you in a much better direction who's oversees that particular base or installation in that New Jersey area, and I can refer you to that PCR who oversees that area, and then they would get you a hold of the appropriate, you know, U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, and Navy contracts offices at Lakehurst, Dix, and McGuire joint base there at Lakehurst.
All right. Great. Thank you, Pac. And I think we are ready to go to our next presenter. All right. So you've heard a little bit about what a PCR is, Procurement Center Representative. We do also have another resource that's available to you. Some of you may not have heard this, Commercial Market Representative, a CMR. So we have Ms. Deborah Crumity, who is going to be sharing today and giving a little backdrop about an SBA CMR. Deborah. And
yes, good morning. I'm here,
morning.
Shanda.
Yes, good morning. Okay. If you want to
So am I to share my slides or do you guys have the slides?
You can go ahead and share them. I don't think we do.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can pull them up. 1 second, please.
Okay. And if you
Um,
need assistance,
I
let
think
me
I
know.
got the email from you, Deb.
I'm sorry.
It's Jill. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
If you need me to open up your slides and forward them, I can.
I think I have them here. I can share my screen here shortly. Let me just figure that out right quick. Share screen. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Not yet. There we go.
Okay. Let me get in the presentation mode here. How about now?
It's not in full presentation mode yet.
Okay, let me try it again. What about that?
All right.
Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. As always, I'm happy to be a part of this event that Jill and Shanna put on annually. I think it's a great opportunity for small businesses and others to learn about the SBA Office of Government Contracting. I wasn't on board for all of POC's presentation, so if some of the information is regurgitated, I apologize in advance, but mainly an SBA commercial market representative, and the name and the title is very misleading. So SBA has what we call subcontracting specialists. Our title is commercial market representatives. So today I'm gonna just touch on the SBA role in subcontracting, as POC alluded, the SBA role in prime contracting. And I'll talk about the commercial market representative customers and just show some tools to identify subcontracting possibilities and opportunities and how to market your company to a other than small prime contractor. And then talk a little bit about your bid and proposals and small business self-certification. And then also how important it is to review and accept a subcontract agreement. So the SBA has commercial market representatives dispersed throughout the United States of America and its outlying territories. So SBA only has 7 commercial market representatives to support probably over, wow, like maybe 1,000 or so prime contractors with subcontracting plans on a contract. Sometimes there are prime contractors that have a subcontracting plan on a contract, and the SBA does not have privy to that information because the system that we utilize is the electronic subcontractor reporting system. So SBA utilizes that system to conduct periodic reviews on a other than small business prime contractor, just to determine whether they're meeting their goals and all other things considered that they agreed to when they were awarded that prime contract in their subcontracting plan. SBA has a subcontracting help desk where you or anyone could submit questions regarding subcontracting to subcontracting@sba.gov. So basically, what we'd like to do though is to have a small business or a large business really get familiar with their commercial market representative within their area. Like I said previously, there are CMRs that are dispersed throughout the United States. I cover the Midwestern states, mainly from Iowa all the way through Wisconsin. The only Midwestern states that I don't support is South Dakota and North Dakota. The CMRs, we basically provide education and training to agencies, large business prime contractors, and small businesses such as yourself. There's a lot of information to share about subcontracting. A lot of companies or small businesses really don't have a lot of knowledge about a subcontracting plan and what a other than small business contractor has to do, how they are legislative and statutorily required to find and search for small businesses to support their federal contract. SBA has a directory of CMRs. Park directed you previously in his presentation. You would go to that same website and there is the Procurement Center Representative Directory. You also have the Area Directors Directory as well as the Commercial Market Representative. I just want to give you like a timeline of how a CMR and a PCR role sort of interrelate. PCRs are involved mostly on the pre-award part of subcontracting. So when they work with federal agencies to look at those acquisitions to ensure small businesses are getting their fair share of prime contracts, they're also looking at those subcontracting plans that come across with proposals or offers from the large businesses. So they're looking at the subcontracting plan to ensure, you know, goals are realistic per se, and that they are affording maximum opportunities to small businesses in the small business and small business subsets, meaning the woman-owned small business, hub zone, all the other certifications. So when the CMR sees those acquisitions packages come across their desk, they are working not only to ensure you have a prime contract or you have opportunities to participate as a prime contractor, but also as a subcontractor. So most of their work is pre-award and the CMRs are post-award after the contract is awarded. So the CMR has numerous customers. We work with federal buyers, and those are the federal agencies that have buying authority. We work with prime contractors that would be mainly large prime contractors. We don't really have a lot of conversation with small business prime contractors. A lot of, I would say, agencies and sometimes prime contractors believe that limitations on subcontracting applies to post-award, but that's mainly for a small business set-asides when the small business prime contractor has agreed that they would have small business subcontractors based on what type of contract was awarded. So we work with small businesses to try to educate you on the SBA Subcontracting Assistance Program and how, you know, whatever tools that are available for you to market and find out about subcontracting opportunities and possibilities. We work with SBA staff at headquarters. A lot of times we get a lot of our requests from our SBA headquarters office. And we also work with the Apex counselors and small business development centers to educate them on subcontracting, and also we reach out to them sometimes when we may have a large business prime contractor come to us and say, you know, I'm looking for a small business that could potentially assist with one of our subcontracting requirements. And it's basically for engineering services. So sometimes we would reach out to an Apex counselor if we don't find any small business within our SBA Dynamic Small Business Search that has those specific requirements that prime is looking for. Now, SBA CMRs, we cannot match make with a prime contractor. And what that means is that I cannot say, hey, Cargill Incorporated, use ABC company for your subcontracting. That's against regulations and against the law. But I can say, well, Cargill, you can search the SBA Dynamic Small Business Search, and there's numerous of small businesses that can support your effort or that has some of the skills and capabilities that you're looking for. So these are some of the tools that that SBA believes that could help you in finding subcontracting opportunities and the possibilities. So one thing you need to first understand, what's the difference in a possibility and an opportunity? So the both of these are really sometimes confused. So why would you need to know the difference in the two? So I would say it's important to know the difference of the two because you would want to know how to, market your company capability. So a person or business who is seeking another person or business to perform work is considered a subcontract opportunity. That means they technically have a requirement right now that they're looking for a small business to help them support that effort. So that would be an opportunity. There's something available right now. Unlike a possibility would be typically at the pre-award phase of a prime contract. So when a large business has a contract that meets the dollar threshold for subcontracting plan, which is $750,000 for services and $1.5 million for a construction of a public facility. So whenever they have a federal requirement, they're looking to see if they could perform all of the tasks required on that contract, or if they're going to need some subcontractors, some small businesses or large businesses to help them fulfill that federal agency's requirement. So at that time, it's possibilities there. So they would actually probably begin their market research looking for small businesses when they're trying to prepare or submit their bid for a federal contract, or it could be after they received a federal contract award and they're doing market research to find small businesses such as yourself. SBA actually encourages large businesses with federal subcontracting plans on contract to utilize our SBA subcontracting network. Now, I went out to Subnet. I was hoping that I could probably do an interactive session, but I'm not going to do it at this moment because that may really put a damper on things. So I think I'll just talk about it right now. But I did go out to SBA Subcontracting Network this morning, just to take a poll to see what was out there. On that network, prime contractors can submit solicitations for a subcontract requirement. They can publish notices of sources sought. They can publish outreach events. And also there's a business directory that you as a small business could pull and keep for record, and so that you can begin your networking and matchmaking from that business directory. So this morning I polled the subcontracting network, and there were 3 solicitations published out there for the state of Ohio. Just keep in mind, you can search that tool by state or by territory. And if you're looking for opportunities in the state of Ohio, you would just click on that map of the state of Ohio, and it would bring up any solicitations, any notices of sources sought that a prime contractor has published out there. Now, in the past, the SBA did notice that there were some businesses or corporations utilizing that tool as a marketing tool, and which is, it's not a marketing tool. It's not a database to market your capabilities, but it is a database to find out if there's subcontracting information out there that your business could possibly fulfill some of those needs. So what the SBA has done with the subcontracting network is now it's behind the cloud base, and it sits behind the SBA Connect portal. So if a large business wanted to publish solicitations, then they would have to go through the SBA Connect portal and access SBA DSBS from there. In my opinion, I believe that may be more work for the prime contractor. as compared to the general login system that the SBA used to use in the past. But I know there is some issues with subnet right now, because when I try to click on the link for the solicitations in the state of Ohio, I could not view the actual solicitation. And typically you should be able to click on the link and bring up more information. So the SBA is aware of that glitch, but at least if you were to go out there now and look for those solicitations under the state of Ohio, there is a point of contact there, and it does give you some information about the requirement itself. One in particular was Resource Environmental Incorporation, has a requirement out there under the NAICS code 238910. So those are just some of the things that SBA subnet will provide to you. It is not a mandatory tool. It has not been legislatively mandated that the prime contractors utilize this tool. I'm hoping in the future, maybe it will be, because right now we can only say, okay, SBA has this subcontracting network. We would encourage you to publish your information regarding any subcontracts to our network. We have been told that a lot of companies are forbidden to use this system because of data rights or proprietary information. But SBA has explained to them that even if you could publish a link to your supplier diversity registration, so that small businesses can tap into your website and register as a supplier, that would be helpful. So we are trying to promote that tool as much as possible. And one other way you can find out about subcontracting possibilities or opportunities is just visiting the prime contractor's website and learning more about them. Because we have been told by primes that a lot of times small businesses would reach out to them and just say that they're looking for work. And a lot of times that's sort of a turnoff for them, because they want you to almost be procurement ready when you reach out to them. I sort of don't agree with that, because we try to encourage mentor-protege agreements if you can from our prime contract, our large business prime contractors, because there may be a small business that could perform part of the subcontract requirement, and maybe another small business can perform the other, or maybe they need some type of financial assistance. So at that time, the large business could possibly or potentially mentor that small business into becoming a subcontractor in the future. So there's other avenues to that a prime contractor, a large business prime contractor, could pursue in trying to locate the right small business for their requirement. So some tips for marketing to prime contractors, and I've probably said some of this already, but many prime contractors, they seek subcontractors right when they're trying to submit a bid or proposal to a federal agency. Now, the FAR Council and SBA has implemented in a regulation update that if a large business prime contractor utilizes a small business for their bid or proposal on a federal contract, then if for some reason when the contract is awarded and that small business does not receive any work, or just have not had any further conversations with the prime, then that small business can contact the federal agency contracting officer to inform them of such. We call that the bait and switch, and many of you probably have heard of that too. They bait you to say, okay, yeah, we can get together and perform this contract, and we're gonna submit the proposal or bid. And once the contract is awarded, we're gonna let you perform this task as you stated your company can fulfill, and that's the way it's going to be. But what we found out, we meaning SBA commercial market representatives, have found that many small businesses are probably are not really understanding the total subcontract agreement, and what tasks they really can perform. So there have been instances where a small business was awarded a contract. I mean, they awarded the contract together, but there was a specific caveat in that subcontract agreement that stated the prime contractor has the liberty to perform any tasks under the contract. So there was a disconnect there for the subcontractor because that small business was thinking that only they could perform that task whenever the government needed that specific task or service. So the small business was not receiving any work because the large business had at liberty could perform the task if they had the manpower to do so. So it's important to really understand before you sign that subcontract agreement or that verbal agreement that you really know what the large business prime contractor is expecting of you to perform that subcontract. Also, when you perform a subcontract for a large business with a federal subcontracting plan, then they will require you to submit a self-certification of your size. So typically the large business would have the NAICS code that is assigned to their requirement to subcontract. And if you wanted to submit a bid or an offer, you would self-certify your size for that NAICS code that is assigned to the subcontractor's requirement. The only self-certification that the subcontractor has to verify is that if you self-certify that you are a hub zone small business, then the large business prime contractor would have to check the SBA dynamic small business search to ensure that you have a hub zone status at the time you submitted your offer. So first and foremost, you just want to emphasize when you submit your offer, or even if you're doing market research, you just want to emphasize to that prime contractor your skills and abilities. Socioeconomic status is great. It's good to be a small business with a socioeconomic status, but it's also great to, when you pursue a large business prime contractor with a subcontracting plan on contract, that you really understand the needs of that prime contractor. And so when you're ready to meet them face to face or verbally, you can lay out everything that your company can do to support their federal contract. Like I said, prime contractors can count a small business in multiple categories. You could be a small business and be a woman-owned small business. You hold that certification. But for any of these certifications, you have to be a small business first. So I mentioned submit a bid, a proposal with a small business self-certification. Again, you want to make sure that you understand what the prime contractor is asking of you before you submit your bid or proposal. The main thing I want you to remember on this is do not deviate from what they're asking you, because it's just like with prime contracts. If you were submitting a bid or proposal for a prime contract, you're only going to submit to the government what they ask you to submit in the instructions to offers. Same thing with a prime contractor with a subcontracting plan on contract. They're going to ask you for specific things, and you're going to answer the question and submit that information to them. So please don't add any information that could potentially not be relevant to what they're asking you to submit in their bid or proposal instruction. And again, you would attach the self-certification for the NAICS code identified in the solicitation. Some prime contractors may have in their solicitation that they will accept a SAM.gov registration if you do attest that your registration is current, accurate, and complete at the time you submit your proposal or offer. So these are the questions that you would ask yourself. If are you ready to be a subcontractor? I think it's very important sometimes to pursue subcontracting versus prime contracting, because a lot of times as a subcontractor, you will be able to enter the gates of federal contracting and not be totally responsible for the contract. But at the same time, you will be receiving, building your capability. You would also be able to understand the very complex arena of federal government contracting. You would also be able to enhance past performance. You would gain experience and just expand on your opportunity as a small business. A lot of times you want to work with a prime contractor to possibly form teaming arrangements or joint ventures, or even the mentor protege agreement. So those are some of the things that you want to consider before you become a subcontractor, but also you want to know that you're ready. Do you have the capacity or capability and capital to perform a subcontract? Those are very important, because just like the federal government, a prime contractor is going to determine responsibility. They're going to follow the 4 Part 9 a responsibility to make sure that you have the capacity, capability, and capital to perform that subcontract. Now, I have heard that some prime contractors, like with capital, one of my primes that I did a compliance review on previously did tell me that they were able to provide some capital assets to a small business to perform their subcontract requirement. So that's why I mentioned previously, it's important to really sell your company to a large business so that they know what your company is capable of doing. And then just make sure you have the proper qualifications and certifications to expand your experience and support whatever your capability statement is mentioning. So whatever you have in your capability statement, just make sure that you're able to back that up. They may ask you for documentation. They may ask you for past performance. And then the main thing is always identify your target market. You want to do your homework, look at the subcontractors that have contracts with a subcontracting plan, and then identify your target market. The SBA does publish a subcontractor directory to our webpage, and I will get that information to you or put it in the chat before we end this conference. And also on that website, you can acquire a listing of the SBA subcontracting directory. That directory is a direct extraction from the federal procurement data system. That is the system that the federal agencies utilize when they publish contract awards. So all of that information, whenever a large business receives a federal contract with a subcontracting plan, then that information is fed into the federal procurement data system, and the SBA can extract that information and post it to our website for small businesses to locate prime contractors. Now that website is a spreadsheet, and it has a listing of the prime contractors, the NAICS code that the prime contract was awarded under, and I believe it has the city and state. There is no point of contact information. However, if you were to locate a firm and you have the state that they're in, again, you can reach out to the commercial market representative that services that state, and they could probably find a point of contact for you, because the CMRs work with the small business liaison officers or subcontract administrators. And so sometimes we would have that, an email address or a phone number that we can provide to you. And the last thing is, you just want to know, are you prepared to agree to the terms and conditions of a subcontract? Always, read the terms and conditions first before you sign the bottom line, because you want, first and foremost, you want to be able to perform the subcontract. because now prime contractors can provide past performance of a first tier small business. So, and that's only at the end of the contract though. So if you were to become a subcontractor for a large business prime, make sure that you communicate with the prime contractor, understand the subcontract agreement. If you have any questions during the subcontract performance, bring it to the prime contractor's attention, because you want to just try to perform that subcontract satisfactorily. So when there's time to request a past performance rating, then that prime contractor will have no problem providing that rating for you. And that would potentially help you receive prime contracts in the future or other subcontracts, because prime contractors do communicate. And if they have a small business that's excelling and that has performed well for them, they're going to communicate that information to the next large business prime. So it's important to.
Deb, this is Jill. We have a question that I think is interesting. So
Sure.
they're all interesting, don't get me wrong. Andrew Ziegler was asking, as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, can I utilize a subcontractor for set-asides that are large business? So it's a little bit opposite. So, and I think, Andrew, maybe like usually large businesses utilize subcontractors to meet like their small business goals or service disabled veteran owned small business goals. I don't like if we were to, and I'm sorry, Deb, I'll let you.
Can you repeat that question, Jill? I want to make sure I'm understanding what I'm hearing.
And Andrew, you can go ahead and unmute your line if you want.
Oh, okay.
So I'll read it again though. As a service disabled veteran owned small business, can I utilize a subcontractor for these set-asides that are large business?
Set-asides for what?
So I think, Andrew, you're asking if you go after, see, and you would, so how contracting is set up, like anything that's full and open competition, when you see on sam.gov, most of the time, like full and open competition requirements, a lot of large businesses would compete for those, and they would use small businesses and service disabled veteran owned small businesses as part of their subcontracting plans. So it usually works the opposite way of how you're proposing it there.
I think you know as a small business, they can I think and this is really getting into the prime award. I've been out of that arena for a while, so I don't want to answer, but I can get back to him because it sounds like he wants to know if he could subcontract to a large business.
Yeah, maybe Andrew, just expand on the question that you're asking. Okay, let's see. I would like to know that as well. Okay. Another person asked. So, as I was mentioning before, it's usually like a large business would subcontract to a small business or a small business that has any of the government contracting certifications, like service disabled, 8A, hub zone, or woman-owned small business. If you as a small business or SDVOS, a service disabled veteran-owned, hub zone, 8A, wanted to partner with a large business, that would be through like the SBA mentor protege program, where you could work with a large business or an other than small business to form the SBA mentor protege agreement and then form a joint venture agreement to bid on contracts together.
Right.
Okay, so I understand what he's saying. As a small construction business, if I get awarded a contract, would I be able to sub work out to a very large construction company?
I'm sort of reluctant to answer that because I don't really have the full details. I mean, certainly there may be opportunities for, I don't know what type of contract, and you may be able to subcontract to a large business. I don't think you can. I mean, I have had small businesses that have a large business subcontractor. It just depends on if it's some type of set aside, then there are limitations on subcontracting.
And Phil, I saw your hand up. Did you want to add
Yeah,
something?
go ahead, Phil. Phil, are you there?
Okay, I saw his hand. I don't know.
I
He's
can't see their
out.
hand.
Okay. So I will keep answering here. Yes, you can sub to a large business,
Yeah.
but most set-asides are for small minority-owned businesses, loan-owned businesses.
Mhm.
Okay, so he has. Okay, and Phil is going to present after this as a size specialist. So I will say in general,
You can.
if any of you that are small business wanted to partner with a business that is other than small, that is allowed through the SBA Mentor Protege program, where then that is a business development agreement where you as the protege would partner with a mentor to form a business development agreement. And as a result of that, you can form a joint venture agreement together and bid on contracts. So I think you're asking, however, like Ali and Maria, could you do like a teaming agreement with a large business? So
Teaming agreements, I would say if a small business want to team with a large business, then certainly, that's within their agreement and what they agree upon. For the SBA Mentor Protege program, if you have a large business mentor and there's a small business protege, certainly that agreement has, you have to submit the information to the Mentor Protege agreement program. But I think in order before you can form a joint venture to potentially for a small business set aside, then that joint venture, you have to be in the Mentor Protege program, but any company can form a joint venture.
And there's a difference between like
Yeah.
joint venture agreements and teaming agreements.
Mm-hmm.
So like with teaming agreements, SBA is not involved in like a teaming agreement between two businesses. SBA does get involved with joint venture agreements for which are separate legal entities. Once a joint venture is set up, it has a separate EIN, it has a separate SAM registration, and all parties to the joint venture agreement are equally liable. When it's a teaming agreement, it's primarily prime sub relationship.
Right. These are great questions. Oh, Phil put the CFR out there to
Yeah.
Jill for reference.
Okay, and I
125.6.
Okay, he put out the prime contractors limitations on subcontracting, which is 125.6. So that talks about performance, contract performance, and the types of business partnerships that you can have for contract performance.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Deb.
Okay, are there any more questions? That concludes my presentation. I didn't have a lot of slides because I wasn't really sure the time frame that I had, but I hope this information was helpful. And certainly, if you have additional questions about other than small business, also known as large business, prime contractors with a subcontracting plan on contract, please contact me. And if you, I think we can put that URL in the chat too, where you can find the SBA subcontractor directory of all the prime contractors with a federal contract that has a subcontracting plan. And this is the FY23 fiscal year. So other than that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm very happy to be here and to be a part of this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Thank you.
It's always, and I think we did have a lot of great questions that we normally don't get. But I think it's always wonderful, especially if you're just getting started on your journey with government contracting. And you may not quite be ready to enter into a direct relationship or a prime contract where you have a direct contract with a federal agency. And so I'm glad that those last couple of slides about, hey, are you ready to be a subcontractor? So thank you for offering those. It's a great way for you to kind of gain entrance into the federal market as a subcontractor. And then also talking about subnet. I know we don't talk about it a lot. Sometimes we get questions. So thank you, Deb, for bringing that up. And I think they put the link for that. Next, last but definitely not least, we have our size specialist, Mr. Phil McLean, with us. So always great to have Phil. He's ready to go, getting his slides up and running. So Phil, you can take it away. Phil, are you talking? Because if so, we can't hear you. Phil? Your presentation's good, but we can't hear you. So I don't know how you're logged in. Perhaps you may have to call in if your mic is not working. Let me see if I can get the number and plug it in the chat. Here we go. Phil?
I can tell he's trying.
Yeah, you can hear it, but
Oh.
it's,
Did you find the number, Shonda? I can put it in.
yes, I got it.
Okay.
And then this is the access. Doo-doo-doo. All right. I'll put in the phone number there. Thank God for technology, but sometimes it does have its quirks, but we always have workarounds, so.
Does everyone come in automatically muted? Do we need to look out for his number to come through?
Oh, that's a good question. Sharon?
Yeah, they do come through muted.
So maybe looking for a 614 number.
It's 614.
And maybe Phil, as soon as you're on, you can type in the chat and we can look out for your number so that we can add.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I'm dialed in and I'm on my computer, so I don't know which audio you can hear.
I don't know.
but
But
I'll
it's
take whatever
working.
I can get at this point.
It's working. Now you took down your slides.
I did. Give me just a second. I'll
Okay.
get those back up. I apologize, everybody.
No need to apologize. Sometimes those things happen, and it's always great that we have a backup. So there we go.
Or nothing if not agile.
Hey, whatever it takes. So, my
Know
name's
how
Phil
to
McLean.
pivot.
Exactly. My name's Phil McLean. I am a size specialist with the SBA Office of Government Contracting, Area 4. I believe Pac's presentation, he kind of briefly mentioned, what the size program does. Not a typical resource that you would, usually reach out to for assistance. Usually, if you're talking to me, it's because you've either been protested on a contract award, or maybe you're interested in protesting. And then there's some things that we'll get into here in the presentation that I can assist with. But one thing I just want to make this clear up front. One thing that we're prohibited from doing is giving you any advice on your legal structure or anything like that. We provide any type of legal advice, and we can't interpret regulations for you. That's just a line that we can't cross, because then we're basically practicing law without a license. So if you have a complex business structure, I'm just going to say this up front, you might need to contact somebody for legal assistance. What I can do is I can point you to the regulations, maybe some other resources. But let's get into it. I know I'm short on time, and I apologize. I'll do my best to get through these slides as quickly as possible. And maybe we'll have some time left at the end for some questions. So my first slide here is why does size status matter? As you guys, I'm sure you're aware, the Small Business Administration has these special procurement programs, and the entire federal government participates by setting aside contracts for small business agencies. They get credit for making awards to small businesses. So you could see why size would come into play on some of those. We want to make sure that the benefits that the government is providing for small businesses actually go to the small businesses. So your small business status is required for some federal programs, definitely contracts, also some preferences for like loans, lending programs, financial assistance, SIPR programs, things like that. When you, pardon me, sorry, my screen's flickering on me, I apologize. So willful misrepresentations of size status are deemed as a result in a total loss to the government. So this is if you bid on a contract as a small business, even if you perform this contract to a T perfectly, you go above and beyond, and you finished performance and everything was great, but then it's found out that you weren't a small business, the value of that contract is considered the injury to the government. It's a total loss to the government. So something to be aware of. We're definitely going to talk about this. SBA does not certify businesses as small. A lot of people don't know that this program is a self-certification program. So firms will go in and self-certify, usually in SAM, but not always. There's some exceptions to using SAM. And then there's some other exceptions where the socioeconomic programs that SBA has, like the 8A and Service Disabled Veteran Small Business Program, Hub Zone, Women Owned. When you get into those programs, you're still self-certifying, and those program officials will look at your size.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're a little bit muffled, so I'm not sure which device you're using, but maybe get close to the other one.
Can you hear me?
No, it sounded okay, but now.
Okay, now I can't hear you at all. All
Yeah,
right.
it sounded okay before.
So sorry about that. I couldn't hear it very well.
Now,
no.
Phil,
hello.
okay, keep talking.
Okay. I don't know what happened there.
Okay,
You know what? I'm baffled here. This is kind of frustrating because on my end, it says everything's fine.
it is, you're good.
So I don't know which source is picking me up. I have both of them in my face right now. So
You're good. Keep going.
okay, so when you are applying for some of the socioeconomic programs, they'll look at your size as part of the status certification, but they're not doing an official size determination. If everything looks okay in those programs, you will, kind of be passed through. But if there's something that doesn't seem to add up, well, then those program offices might refer you for a formal size determination. So just be aware of that. Size is almost always a self-certification process. And your self-certification is a deemed certification when you submit an offer on a procurement. So just by checking the box on, there's different provisions and clauses depending on what kind of contract document they're using, but when you do submit a bid that's set aside for small businesses, there's usually something on there saying, what the standard is. And there's also language saying that just by submitting the bid or offer, you are self-certified. You are certifying that you are a small business in compliance with all the regulations. So just be aware of that as well. There's some of what the potential liabilities are and some of the penalties, and they're pretty scary. And I do have to put the scary stuff out there. So this is some of the penalties that could happen, and it could include jail time and civil penalties, and potentially even suspension or debarment from all federal procurement and non-procurement transactions. So that's I have to say that. I'm required to say that. If you have a complex business structure, definitely pay attention to this. For most people, though, it might not be something you need to look in too much. But we'll go through some more slides, and maybe you'll get some more information on what you need to determine if you are an actual small business or not. So who decides if a firm is small? Well, it's honestly your self-certification. So you do until you're challenged. And then if you are challenged, it would go to SBA. SBA has exclusive jurisdiction in the federal government to determine a firm's size. We're tiny, but we are complicated. So you're seeing just a little bit of that with this presentation today. Different people do different aspects of the total process. So one of the things, like the district office, like if you're dealing with Jill or Shonda at the district office, they are your most visible resource partner. But when it comes to government contracting, they're kind of only peripherally involved, and usually only with 8A procurements. You might be talking to Pak, who gave the first presentation today. He's going to be a little more involved in the procurement stuff. So Pak falls under SBA area office, as do I, and the area offices are the only ones allowed to perform a formal size determination. So if you unfortunately would be determined as other than small, or OTS, that's my abbreviations here. The AO means area office, and OTS is other than small. And you do not appeal that determination, then it's basically affirmed. Then you are ineligible for federal procurements or any contract that would have the same size standard or a lower size standard than the one that you were found other than small on. And you'd be required to revise your SAM profile within 2 days of the finding, or SBA will do that for you. And this is just one interesting thing to note is if you've been found other than small, you can't just recertify later and say, hey, we're small now. We got rid of so many employees, or our revenues are down. So we no longer exceed the status. You would actually have to go back through the SBA area office and be determined to be small again through a recertification process. And only then, if SBA area office finds you small, could you recertify in SAM as a small business. So let's get into that, what it takes to be a small business. There's some general requirements. First, you must be organized as a for-profit entity. This is part of the Small Business Act. This is how Congress set it up. This is to help for-profit entities. If you are a nonprofit entity, there's other programs out there that Congress has created that can assist you with those. Another aspect is foreign ownership. That's irrelevant. The requirement is that the firm has to have a place of business in the United States and either A, operate primarily, or B, make a significant contribution to the U.S. economy. And that could be through the payment of taxes or use of American products, material, or labor. And then the other aspect of the general requirements is that you must meet the relevant NAICS size standard. Talk about NAICS, that's the North American Industrial Code System. Every procurement has a NAICS assigned to it, and every NAICS has a size standard assigned to it. And let's talk a little bit more about NAICS. The Office of Management and Budget, OMB, they created the NAICS system, the six-digit code that identifies your industry and subsector. And you can consult the Census Bureau website through the relevant website slide I have at the end of my presentation here. There's several websites that you can take away with you, and they'll be towards the end of the presentation. Definitely do not use the IRS Principal Business Activity Codes. That's also a six-digit code. They're very similar, but sometimes they're different. So definitely pay attention to that. Use the NAICS code. Now, COs or contracting officers, they have to assign a NAICS code that best describes the principal purpose of the product or service that they're trying to acquire through their procurement. And then every one of those NAICS codes has a size standard. So also note some of those procurements might have multiple NAICS codes if it's like a multiple award contract. So definitely look out for those. Now let's talk a little bit about the slides. And I apologize for going through the slides so fast, but just there is a time constraint. So hopefully I have enough time at the end for questions. But as I said, size standards, they apply to the NAICS code. And they are mostly, almost exclusively measured by your average annual receipts or number of employees. And it can only be one, not the other. So it's either annual receipts or number of employees, not both. And your size is determined.
Your voice seems to be fading.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, there's probably something wrong with my computer. I apologize. I thought everything was fine. So as where I was on bullet number 2 here. Size is determined and relates solely to a particular NAICS code. So a firm may be simultaneously a small business for some NAICS codes and other than small for other NAICS codes. NAICS codes can have NAICS codes have different size standards. So if the size standard is 500 employees and you have 501 employees, well, you'd be other than small for all those size standards that are 500. But if it has a 1,000 employee size standard, well, then you'd be small for that. For small business set-asides, the firms, they have to qualify as small under the size standard of the NAICS assigned to the procurement. And these size standards are regularly adjusted, but always use the current version and watch out for carve-outs and footnotes. And here I'm going to show you an example of what some of those look like. If you go to SBA regulations, you can Google, but I also have a link on the last slide of my presentation where you can locate the size standards and the NAICS codes. You'll see that some are in millions of dollars of revenue and some are in number of employees. And as you can see, some of them have little footnotes. And if you read in the footnotes, that gives you additional information on how to apply that. So just pay attention to those because some of them are significant. Some of them aren't so significant and it's just informational, but this is what it would look like. And let's talk a little bit about the difference between a size protest and a size request. So when my office deals with, size determinations, about 90% of those will be as a result of a procurement protest, either on a small business set aside or 8A procurement, competitive 8A procurement. Some of these ones that are listed in the top portion of this slide here, hub zone set asides, things like that, where someone else has protested the awardee's size status. Another roughly 10 to 15% of the size determinations we do are from internal program requests, such as if you maybe applied for the hub zone program and the program office felt that maybe, hey, this firm doesn't appear to be small. Well, they're not going to deny your request, your application for that. They're going to refer it over to the area office to do a formal size determination in those situations. So these are the people who are authorized to do protests and authorized for requests. They're a little different, but they're handled almost exactly the same. There are other types of protests out there that you shouldn't get a size protest confused with. Some of these non-size protests are, pre-award protests, post-award protests. Those are your FAR Part 33 type protests. There's also status protests. And some of these types of protests, they either stay with the agency or they'll go to GAO. Some go to SBA, different program offices within SBA. And some of them can actually go to the Court of Federal Claims. So, if you're protesting, if you have a protest, or if there is a protest alleging a firm is ineligible for socioeconomic set aside, like, for instance, a hub zone set aside, that actually does not go to the area office. That goes to the SBA program office that's in SBA headquarters. So sometimes a protest will challenge both their status as a hub zone firm or service disabled veteran-owned firm or woman-owned firm, and also their size. And those two different protests can take place at the same time. They're handled independently, but they're simultaneously processed. And here's some basic rules about the size protests. They have to be filed with the contracting officer. You don't file them directly with the SBA area office. They have to go through the contracting officer. That way the contracting officer can do what they need to do, which usually involves maybe placing a stop work order to stop the work so that the protest could be decided, and then pending the outcome of that determination process. So the contracting officers are required by regulation to refer all size protests to the SBA area office. So they don't get to make a determination on their own. They can't ignore your protest. So, or if you've been protested, it has to go through SBA. Our authority on these are absolute and exclusive. Now, there are 3 conditions where a protest could be dismissed without even getting into the merits of the protest. And that could be, well, one, the protester has to have standing. And what that means is they basically have to have been an offerer on the procurement. So if they didn't even place an offer, they don't have any standing in the case. So you have to, be an offer that has not been eliminated from competition in order to submit a protest. protest also has to be timely. The protest generally it has to be received within 5 days of the contracting office's notification of whoever the awardee is. So if it's outside of that 5 business days, so it doesn't count weekends or holidays. For 5 business days, if it's beyond that, then it will be dismissed as untimely. And then thirdly here, the protests have to be specific. And this one's a little, you probably want to look at the regulation that I have cited here on this, but there's some examples in the reg is why I say that. But you have to make an allegation that is supported with some evidence. You can't just say, hey, I don't think they're small. You have to point to something saying, hey, the size standard on this procurement was 500 employees, and their own website says they employ, 2,000 people. So when you have public information like that, you can bring that as the basis of your protest. That would meet the specificity requirement. But if it's just a bald-faced allegation with no supporting documentation, it's likely to be dismissed as non-specific. Okay, so time limits. This is SBA's time limits. This is after the protest has been received and it hasn't been dismissed for any of those 3 reasons. The area office has 15 business days from the referral from the contracting officer to issue a written determination. The SBA regulations say we'll do this if possible, but the FAR doesn't say that, so there's a little conflict in the regulations. What we do is the size protest will take however long it needs to take. We try to get it done within 15 business days if possible. The contracting officer, they might not want to give the full 50, or they might not want to wait, give any additional time after the 15 days. They have some things that they can do. The FAR grants them, they can proceed with the contract at their own risk if they do that, but certain situations they can't. So if a protest is received, the firm has 3 business days to respond. So out of this 15 business days that we get, 3 of them are given to the small business to respond to the protest. So in reality, the area office only has 12 days. Let's talk a little bit more about that though. On a later slide, I'll get to it on what you would need to do if you are protested. So before we get to that though, we're going to talk about how size is determined, and size depends on affiliation. Concerned size is measured by its own size plus all of its affiliates, and that's foreign and domestic. And control is what creates affiliation. And this is a direct quote from the regulations. Affiliation exists if one concern controls or has the power to control the other, or a third party has the power to control both. And so here's a listing of how control can arise. And there's a lot of different ways. We look at a lot of things. The most obvious is, stock or interest ownership. So if you own 50, if you have a 50% interest in something, you're generally considered to control that company. Or if you own, 50% of the stock, you can control it. There's times where you can own less than 50% and still control the organization. We look at things like agreements to merge. So if you have an agreement in principle that another firm is buying your company, or you're buying another company, and you have agreed to basically everything except you're waiting for the specific day to sign it. Sometimes we'll give that a present effect rule, and we'll go back to the date that the agreement was signed as opposed to the finalization, the final documents. Some other areas you have to look at is common management. If 2 firms have the same CEO, obviously there's ways that person can control both businesses. A really interesting one is an identity of interest. We see that with family members generally. Mother owns a business and the daughter also owns a business. those two firms can be considered affiliated because they have the same economic interest. Same brothers, other types of family members at that primary family member level. There's also an economic identity of interest where a firm is economically dependent on the other firm for a significant portion of their business. You can see how that could confer control in certain situations. One really important thing that I stress is the franchise agreements. When you have some of these franchise agreements, sometimes the corporation that you're franchising from has things in your agreement that would indicate that they can control certain aspects of your business. Depending on how significant those are, that could be considered that they control your business, even though you're the owner. So definitely, if you need legal assistance with those kind of things, speak to an attorney advisor before you get into those kind of franchise agreements if you're going to do government contracting. If you look at the second to last bullet here, I'm talking about negative control. That's what we see in a lot of these franchise agreements, is that the franchise corporation can prevent you from doing something. But even a minority interest owner or somebody who owns some other, maybe some stock or sits on the board of directors, depending on what kind of company you own or you run, if they can prevent the company from doing some normal business activity like spending a certain amount of money or getting in, suing another company, if that could be prevented just by one person holding out, that kind of lockup is considered negative control, and you can find some affiliation with that sometimes. We usually see that in joint venture agreements where the two firms are partners to a joint venture, and one can prevent the joint venture, which is a separate legal entity, from doing certain things. And if that's, sometimes that's a large business, or they're both maybe medium-sized small businesses. And if there's some element of control where one firm can control both, we have to consider them affiliated, and we'll aggregate the size of the two businesses together. And that could, potentially make the firm to be found other than small. But so let's say your firm does get protested. This is kind of a real quick walkthrough on what you'd be expected to do. And you only have that 3 days that I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot that is involved here. So, but I'll go through it as quickly as I can. But one of the most important things you'll want to do is provide a response to the protesters' allegations. So they might say, hey, the firm is other than small because we found this information, like that example I gave earlier, that their own website says they have more than 500 employees. Well, you get an opportunity to respond to that protest, and maybe it's not very apparent all the time that when we're looking at the size of a firm, and if it's based on the number of employees, we're looking at a 2-year average. So maybe the firm is over 500 employees right now, but if you look at the 2-year average, they were under. So definitely respond to the protest allegations. If you don't, well, I'll call you then. I'll say, hey, you need to respond to the protesters' allegations. But you'll also be required to fill out an SBA form 355. That's always required. You'll also have to provide your corporate documents, or if you're an LLC or corporation or even a sole proprietor, any governing documents that you have. It's also possible if it's a revenue-based size standard for a lot of the service and construction contractors out there. You might have to provide your federal income tax returns. If it's an employee-based size standard, you might have to provide things like your IRS Form 941 quarterly returns that list your number of employees, or payroll, or W-2s. You also have to provide your company's financial statements, and also any other information that we might need to make a size determination. This is just a look at the first page of the SBA form 355. And it's just a reminder that when you fill this out, you are certifying that this information, to the best of your knowledge, is accurate and correct. The first part of the 355, these are things you must report. That's all principal shareholders or members. That's ownership of more than 10%. We also would need to see a complete upstream ownership until reaching natural persons. A lot of times we'll see small businesses that are owned by holding companies or things like that. If that's the case, if you have a holding company, then we'll need to know who the owners of the holding company are until we get to natural persons. You also have to provide all officers and all members of the board of directors or board of managers or general partners, depending on your business structure. Now, SBA does have the right to presume that if you fail to submit the information that we request or that's required, there's this thing called well, we can just presume that the disclosure of that information will demonstrate that you were other than small, and that's why you did not provide that. So it's definitely very important to provide a response. And when this happens, we will give you another opportunity. We'll say, hey, I'm about to find that, or your failure, just a gentle reminder, your failure to respond to this might result in SBA presuming that the disclosure of this information would show that you're other than small. So we'll give you that reminder, but please try to provide everything up front. There's some other things you have to provide on the in conjunction with the Form 355, any trust, voting trust, stock pledges, shareholder agreements, and provide those copies to us, along with all past and pending receipts of stock options, any recent or pending mergers, including agreements of principles that I mentioned previously, and all recent or pending stock or asset sales. You also have to report all outside ownership interests and positions for each owner, officer, and director. So if you own 51% of your business and someone else owns 49% of your business, but they also own other businesses or have ownership stakes in other businesses, well, we want to know about those other businesses too. You'd be surprised what we can find sometimes. You have to disclose any acknowledged affiliates and all owners, officers, directors, and principal shareholders of each affiliate company. And you also have to submit their tax returns, financial statements, or employee numbers for any and every acknowledged or potential affiliate as requested. We also ask other questions of were key persons employed to perform similar work for the affiliates? Does the firm share or lease any facilities, equipment, personnel? As you can see, that could be an issue potentially if you're working out of the same building using the same equipment. You might be found affiliated. Just depends. Are there current or past financial obligations like loans, things like that? Have they helped you receive bonding? And are you, or will they be a subcontractor in the pending contract? These all come into play when we're determining affiliation. Once the area office makes a determination, they provide a written determination stating the basis for the conclusion, and we send a copy of that to the protester, the protested concern, and the contracting officer. And the contracting officer may award a contract based upon an area office decision without waiting to see if an appeal is filed. Because anytime we do make a decision, there are appeal rights. That could be from the protester, the protesting firm, or even the contracting officer. Now, this was an overview only. I know I'm a little over. I'm sorry. I tried to get through it as fast as I can. But we didn't even touch some of the other important things here, like the non-manufacturer rule, joint ventures, mentor-protege agreements, some of the identity of interest and ostensible subcontracting, similarly situated entities, recertification. These are all 1-hour topics on their own. So I did mention that I would provide some relevant websites on my last slide. Here that is. This most important one at the top is the affiliation guide for size standards. Please download that. You can download it. It's on SBA's website. It goes through in a more detail than I just did some of the aspects that we covered. Also, the second link there is the rules, the SBA regulations, and then the last two bullets. One is the SBA Office of Hearing and Appeals search engine, so you can actually look at other size determinations that have been appealed in the past, and the Bureau of Census website for your NAICS code information. And then this is, if you remember in Pac's initial presentation, he showed the map with the 6 different area offices. I'm giving you a point of contact for each area office here. So if you don't happen to be located in Columbus or anywhere in Ohio, you might not even be in Area 4. Maybe you just tuned in from a different state, or you're moving to a different state, or you're doing business with a firm in a different state or territory. Here's some point of contacts that might be useful to you. And as it was mentioned previously, I believe these slides will be made available to everybody here within the next week or so. And I encourage you, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Something doesn't make sense, just ask. In this sign that I'm showing here on this slide, that actually translates to something like entering the barn is prohibited. But it also makes sense to not follow the cow. Especially if you're from Ohio and you know anything about a sneezing cow, you would know not to stand behind it. But definitely feel free to ask questions. That's it for me. Do we have any questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Phil. Lots of great information. I know there's some little technical difficulties, but I do appreciate you coming through. And I think Jill close out, see if there's any questions. But thank you so much. A lot of information. We'll have to have you guys back at another time.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to all of our presenters today. I feel like I learn something every time there's a presentation, regardless of who is presenting. One of the things that I hope all of you keep in mind is that if you are not confused by some of the topics, then you're not really in government contracting. So it takes a while to learn everything in doing business with the government. But just know that we are your resources and we're here to help you. So whether it's through connecting with an Apex accelerator, I know that I got several messages in the chat of people asking me how to find their Apex accelerator counselor. And Sharon has put the website for Ohio University Apex Accelerator into the chat. And Sharon, if you wouldn't mind doing that again, I'd appreciate it, because we may have some participants who are not in Ohio, or just maybe they didn't catch the website the first time. So I know that Apex highly recommends that you fill out a new client profile form, and you can get that through the Ohio University Apex website. When you fill out a new client profile form, the Apex will match you with the counselor that is closest to your geographic location. There is no charge to being an Apex Accelerator client. It's taxpayer funded. So the only thing that Apex asks in return is that you report your government contract activity on a quarterly basis. That is how they keep funding for their program. And I see, Sharon, you have put the apex.ohio.edu into the chat again. Some of the other questions included, how do I get a small business certification? Phil did a really good job covering that. That is a self-certification. I put a link to SBA's, the NAICS codes and the SBA size standards for your reference. You can look up all of the different NAICS codes that SBA provides size standards for. You can figure out what your primary industry is. through that. Another question is, are we going to have the slides available? The slides will be available on the Ohio University Apex Accelerator website, in addition to this recording, in about a week. So hopefully that answers the majority of the questions that I saw go through, but I really appreciate everyone's time today. I know that 2 hours is a lot of time to set aside. So thank you very much. And I will go ahead and conclude with that. And Sharon, if you could stay on the line with us just a couple minutes, we want to go over some things. I will just go ahead and wait a little bit as everyone starts to drop off. But thank you again to POC, Saw Dewars, PCR, Deb Crumity, CMR, and to Phil McLean, SBA size specialist.
Have a great day.
Yes, thank you.